Good afternoon. My name is Marla McGinnis, and I will be your moderator for today's media availability. Today's participants include Jason Mew from Nova Scotia Emergency Management Office, Matt Drover from Nova Scotia Power, Lieutenant Colonel Adam Poirier from the Canadian Armed Forces, Christina Lemay from Cape Breton Regional Municipality, Erica Fleck from Halifax Regional Fire and Emergency, Bill Lawlor from the Canadian Red Cross, Geoff Moore from Bell, and Lee Bragg with Eastlink. Before we take questions, Mr. Mew is going to start us off with a couple brief comments. Go ahead, Mr. Mew.
Thank you very much, Marla. Appreciate it. Thanks everyone for taking the time today. Very appreciative of your time. I know we're all busy and spending a lot of time away from families. Just want to let everyone know that we've been continually working with all our key partners throughout the province and at all levels of government. We have additional resources that are in Pictou, Guysborough, and Antigonish. We're in constant contact with our wildland fire response teams in those areas, and we are looking to bring additional personnel and equipment from across Atlantic Canada to enhance that restorations. And we're also, fuel continues to be a priority for us throughout the province, and we're working with our suppliers to stabilize the fuel supply to ensure that there's enough fuel for everyone's needs. Over to you, Marla. Thanks.
Thank you. And I'm also going to turn it over now to Mr. Drover for an update from Nova Scotia Power. Go ahead, Mr. Drover.
Thank you. Good afternoon. There are two things I'd like to touch on today: where we are with the restoration and also on safety. So Hurricane Fiona has been a massive storm throughout our province, really left extensive damage across all parts of the province. It brought hurricane-force winds and left damage that we haven't seen in this province before. And that's really reflected in our response to this storm. We planned for weeks in advance of the storm hitting, and as of today, we have over 1,400 people in the field working around the clock to restore power as quickly and safely as possible. That's made up of power line technicians, forestry workers, damage assessors, and hundreds of people behind the scenes helping support that effort. We're also working closely with our partners with the Canadian Armed Forces and Department of Natural Resources. They're helping us get into those hard to reach areas, clearing those roads, removing the trees, and making sure that we can get access to rebuild our lines. We've seen thousands of trees come down in the storm, impacting our infrastructure, and we have hundreds of broken poles that we're in the process of cleaning up now. We are making progress, but a storm of this magnitude and damage like this does take time to clean up. We expect the majority of people will be restored by Friday night. There are areas that have been hit a bit harder than others that may go into the weekend, and a few small areas that may go into next week. We know this is tough. We understand people's frustrations. We ask everybody to please be patient with us. We're doing everything we can to restore power as quickly and safely as possible. We appreciate that patience, and we're definitely grateful to all of our partners that are helping us with this restoration. From a safety standpoint, just a couple of quick reminders. As we continue with this restoration, we have many people working on the ground right now, and I just ask people to please give them some space to work effectively. It is difficult to get around right now, and the more space you can give our workers, the more effective they will be. We really appreciate that. And as I mentioned, there are many wires on the ground as well. Please treat all wires as if they are energized. From a safety perspective, please stay as far away from those as you can. And let us know if you do see down wires, and we'll get out there to remove them as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now take questions from reporters. We're going to use the one question, one follow-up format. Please remember to identify who your question is for. We'll start today with Shayna Luck with CBC. Go ahead, Shayna.
Hi there. My question is for the reps from Bell and Eastlink. Bell and Eastlink have both spoken to us about feeling that your staff did a very good job at keeping people connected, but the Premier was critical of your response today, and federal politicians called the response not normal on communications. They said this would be a major focus for them. Many Nova Scotians are also telling us they think what happened was not acceptable from a communications point of view. So what level of service should Nova Scotians expect in this kind of a storm?
Maybe Marla, it's Geoff. Let me start. So I think we can't forget that we had, a huge hurricane impact Nova Scotia. So I think an expectation of service never going down isn't something that is just reasonable given the magnitude of the event that hit us. From Bell's perspective, we've worked, in the weeks prior to the storm, and have literally been 7/24 around the clock to work with our partners, Nova Scotia EMO, Nova Scotia Power, even our competitors, to restore all of the networks here in Atlantic Canada to get service back to our customers. So I think it's that recognition that given the size of the event, things are going to go down. I'm happy to report that 98% of Bell's wireless network in the province is back in service based on all the great work that our technicians, and field teams have done to get service back. So I think it's just that recognition that as a service provider, we are doing everything within our possible, everything that is possible, to actually step up and make sure that the networks and services are there for our customers, but recognizing the magnitude of the event that's happened.
Yeah, hi Shane, it's Lee. I'd mirror this exactly what Geoff had said. I mean, everybody obviously wants to know as much as they can, and our focus always is to, work with our other partners in this, Nova Scotia Power, Bell, Rogers, the province. We all work hard to try to get service on as fast as possible. We have as much communication as we can to all our customers about restoration times. But it is a challenge, and sometimes it's difficult for us to predict exactly when we can restore a certain area, because there are other mitigating factors, whether it's tree removal, getting power back online. And as much as we work with our other partners, it's difficult to have a perfect answer for everybody all the time. This particular storm was massive, but I will say, in my experience going through Dorian and Hurricane Juan, we had a higher level of coordination with all our other telecom and infrastructure partners. We were better prepared. We learned from the other events. So we were, unfortunately, it's hard to say we've done a better job, I think all of us, than the last few times these events have happened, but they are still massive events, and there's going to be damage, and it's going to be difficult to predict restoration times. And until you get out there in the field and assess the level of damage, you cannot, in the first hour of a storm like this, understand the magnitude and have a perfect answer prepared for everybody. So unfortunately, it does take time. I mean, I'm pleased with the way our teams have worked. I'm pleased with the level of coordination that we've had with everybody. And I do understand, the Premier's perspective. Everybody wants everything to work all the time, but, the challenge is sometimes that's just not possible.
Thank you. Shayna, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, and again, for both Geoff and Lee, thanks for that. Further to that, I guess many people who relied on landlines told us that their service went out. So given that cell networks now seem to be the backup system, what changes are you planning to make in terms of backup generator systems, say, to keep those running?
Yep. So from the Bell perspective, anytime there is an event like this, we always learn, we always improve. Based on I call it the outcomes of Hurricane Dorian, we've made more investments in fixed generators at sites, expanded our fleet of portable generators for those sites that don't have fixed generators. So it's about learning, it's about growing, it's about improving. And I think as well, making sure that we understand where our customers' focus is. So, the shift from wireline to wireless that you mentioned, make sure that we've got the right focus on the right networks to make sure that the residents of Nova Scotia have the service they expect.
Yeah, again, I mean, we run similar businesses, so we end up doing the same thing to solve problems. Same answer. Further investment in fixed generators at some sites that don't have them. All of our sites do have some level of backup. I think this time we learned a little more on needing more reliability for fuel delivery to some of our generator sites. But we were even tripped up with roads blocked from fallen trees that we couldn't even get fuel into the sites that had generators on some occasions. So there are, as I said before, they are challenging, but we always learn, and we always, can figure out where these particular areas of highest risk are and try to mitigate those for the future. But, every storm's a little different, and, as best as we all can do, there will be something else that trips us up next time.
Yeah, I think well said, Lee. I think just to maybe add to that, this restoration is very much an integrated process. There's communications, there's Nova Scotia Power, fuel providers, road clearing, and that is an integrated system that needs to perform and be well choreographed to accelerate the restoration and getting all of our customers, regardless of whether they're communications, power, or other, back in service.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Alicia Drost with Global. Go ahead, Alicia.
Thank you. I just want to continue, I guess, on this line of questioning to both Bell and Eastlink. Are you able to give us an understanding of, I guess, at the peak, how many customers were impacted by failures for cell service and landline service? Can we just get even if it's a percentage rather than a number of customers?
So I'll start with that, and then I'll hand it over to Lee. I think on the mobility side, defining customers isn't the right approach. We have cell sites that serve geographical areas, and we really need to look at those geographical areas that are served, as opposed to kind of counting customers, recognizing, customers move around. They can kind of go from one geography to another. Having said that, given the density of Bell's wireless network here in Nova Scotia, we have a lot of overlapping sites. So if one site is down, there's a high probability that a neighboring site is able to pick up that coverage. It won't be perfect, won't be that same level of service that you would have got from the original site, but the other site will be able to kind of pick it up. On the wireline side, if I think residential phone, residential internet, it was a target that kept moving, to be quite honest. As we would see power come back on, we'd see the number of customers reduce that are out of service, and then through some restoration activities, in some cases we had to take customers down to bring back a larger group of customers. So it's been something that's been very fluid, very dynamic over the course of the event, and will continue to be that way until the last customer is back in service.
I'm going to sound like a broken record, but we're in exactly the same situation. I mean, we had some areas where we did lose connectivity to some of our sites, but because of the overlapping nature of the cellular network, it's difficult to understand why a customer's cell phone may not work. It may be their batteries has failed. Maybe they can't get data throughput because the network's congested. I will say at this point, we've got connectivity to 99% of our customers on a cellular standpoint. We were as low as 85%, but to Jeff's point, we don't necessarily understand why the 15% would say they weren't connected. We did see a massive amount of data traffic increase on the networks, and with the odd site that failed with the overlapping network, you do get some reduced service, but there was no point in time where we had what I'd call dead spots in the network. There were low performing spots in the network because there'd be an odd site off, as well as the fact that fixed line internet was down. There was a flood of data on the cellular network, and that can cause some interruptions in some services and just a congestion on the network. So some customers may have shut their phones off. So we can only see phones that are connected to the network. It's hard for us to know why they're not. So a variety of reasons. The majority, as I said, 99% are back reconnected to the network. From a fixed wireline standpoint, we had a high of, I think the number was 155,000 internet customers off at one point. We're down to about 35,000, concentrated predominantly in Cape Breton, New Glasgow, and Truro, where there were significant amounts of damage. Some of those reasons are, network failure from trees falling on lines. So we need the physical restoration of pole lines and infrastructure before we can get that back online. And some of it's power related as well. And I do have to say, we should all be giving credit to Nova Scotia Power, who did a phenomenal job from a pre-deployment, getting crews out, getting power back on as fast as they could. And that tends to be one of the biggest sensitivities we have. I mean, and I understand, hence the reason for the backup, the generator and the resiliency question earlier. But, we still have 3,500 locations where our network is powered across the province. So we are reliant on, power connectivity, and, Nova Scotia Power is doing a great job getting them back on. But that is one of the issues that we need to have solved in order for our remaining customers to get back on.
Thank you. Alicia, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. And this one is for Erica Fleck. Can you just give a little bit of an update in terms of cleanup in HRM and maybe how many roads there are that are still kind of blocked off?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Alicia. So as of last night, we still had about 40 roads that were either fully blocked or partially blocked. And I'll have the update shortly for today's progress. But a lot of that is coordination with both Nova Scotia Power, telecom service providers that, we need everybody on site. And unfortunately, for some of those, we need Nova Scotia Power to shut down power again for our crews to get out and work on street lights, traffic lights, and things like that. But we're making huge progress every day.
Next, we'll go to Paul Bacon with All Nova Scotia. Go ahead, Paul.
I guess this question would be for Mr. Moore and Mr. Bragg. A lot of customers have complained about not being able to track where the outages are or when service might be restored in the same way they can for Nova Scotia Power. Is that something you would look at providing the next time we have an event like this?
Short answer is yes. We, as I mentioned earlier, we're always looking for improvement. We've been actively communicating through our social channels, through media, through EMO. So I think we've done a good job of communicating. And if I look back against Hurricane Dorian and some of the feedback coming out of that, communication was a big opportunity. I think we've improved. But also from an ongoing improvement, I think there's always opportunities to improve. So there's going to be lots of learnings from this storm. How do we take those in, make ourselves stronger, and do a better job for our customers?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at in the process of a better online outage tool for our customers. We do use an internal one so that we have visibility ourselves as to where the outages are. I understand that's not necessarily helpful to all the customers, but we do arm all our customer service representatives with that information. So as customers call in, we do the best job we can at the moment with trying to be able to explain what the issue is, what the restoration times are. And again, part of the challenge is because of the number of different issues that affect us getting back on, it's a significant amount of coordination, pulling all that information in on whether it's roads being open so we can get access, power related issues so we can get networks back on. We try to coordinate all that and have it available, but we do not and have a good tool for customers to go online and find that out for themselves. But that is something we're working on at the moment.
Thank you. Paul, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. Again, for Mr. Moore and Mr. Bragg, I guess I'm just wondering, do you feel like the Premier's letter, his comments in his release today, are those fair? In terms of the telco response, sorry.
I don't mind taking this one on first. To be honest, I'd say no. I was confused with some of it on the level of coordination, and I understand maybe his frustration about not having presence in the EMO on day one. But for our perspective, our focus is getting understanding the magnitude of the damage to the network, and that takes all of our efforts to do that. It's not valuable to put somebody in the EMO who doesn't know anything. So we spent the first couple of days. Now, we were in constant coordination back and forth with all parties from a virtual standpoint, but that, in our perspective, made more sense to have somebody in our network operations center who had real-time access to the information, coordinating with all other parties. once we got through some of that and had a reasonable understanding of what the magnitude of the issues were, then we could intelligently participate, and we did send somebody. But, and, you know, so I think that's just maybe his lack of understanding of how, you know, the networks are managed and what we do and how we operate. But, you know, that's not his full-time job. So I can understand why he wouldn't necessarily know that. But, and also from a federal standpoint, I mean, we were in constant communication with Minister Champagne. You know, I traded text messages and phone calls with them all weekend, keeping them up to date. So I think we did, you know, and I said before, this was the most coordinated effort I'd seen with any other event like this. So I think it's a little unfair to be critical when, you know, we've done a better job than we've ever done before and a higher level of communication and coordination that we've ever had. So, you know, obviously it's never perfect, but I don't know. I just think maybe it wasn't, you know, he didn't have all the information available.
Yeah, and I think I know, Lee, it's my turn to align with you. I think, you know, from a Bell perspective, I think the one thing that I really want to bring clarity to is Bell was in the EMO beginning on Friday before the storm hit, and that was something that was a significant learning and more importantly, I think a significant request coming out of the Hurricane Dorian debrief. So we were there. You know, some of the concerns that Lee shared around, you know, effectiveness and having the right person there, I'm certainly aligned with, and very aligned with is the feedback around coordination. The coordination between Bell, our construction partners, our real estate teams with other carriers, Nova Scotia EMO, Nova Scotia Power, excuse me, I think was top notch. It's never been this tight. So I think it's, and as well, this is a very, very quick moving, fast flowing, dynamic restoration process we're going through. So, you know, getting the right information in the right hands of the right individuals can sometimes take some time. So I think there's you know, I think there's some opportunities here around, you know, communication to we can collectively do a better job of communicating, be it to our customers, government officials, you know, even into the CRTC.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Jesse Thomas with CTV. Go ahead, Jesse.
Thank you. Perhaps we can hear from Lee first and then Geoff on this one, just to break the order a little bit. But I'm curious, in, you know, looking back in hindsight now, we knew Fiona was coming for days, and Nova Scotians and Maritimers prepared. You know, we got enough supplies for 72 hours, but I don't think there was much communication on the threat of our phone networks and cellular networks going down. Was that perhaps a missed opportunity? Could we have predicted this situation that we're in? Because I know there was a lot of Nova Scotians who were panicked, frightened, and now frustrated because they didn't have the communication that they thought was going to be there if they needed it in an emergency.
You know, I can appreciate the frustration that customers have when the networks go down, but we did, you're right, we did know it was coming. We did pre-deploy generators. We did bring extra crews in days in advance. We tracked the path of the hurricane and moved resources around as the landfall of the hurricane was predicted moving farther east. We knew that that's likely where more of the damage was going to be. So we moved more of those resources to anticipate. You know, stockpiled fuel. I mean, I'm not sure, you know, could we have propped up trees? Maybe, but there's, you know, we knew there was going to be a significant amount of damage, but there are some things you just can't prepare for. You can prepare, but being prepared is different than stopping the actual hurricane from coming. I mean, there was no, you know, there wasn't anything we could do about that. As well prepared as we were, we still knew there was going to be significant damage to physical infrastructure. We had extra fiber optic cable on hand, as I said, generators. You know, we were prepared, but it doesn't stop the fact that there's going to be a significant amount of damage.
Absolutely. And from the Bell side, it's a very, very, very similar feedback. We prepared early. We brought crews in from Ontario and Quebec, and it's people, it's vehicles, it's generators, it's fiber cables, it's copper cables, and then strategically deployed those around, and I'll be honest, across Atlantic Canada, given how big this storm was. So we believe we did everything possible to prepare for Fiona's visit to Atlantic Canada. And then really, once Friday evening hit, it was sit back and watch what happens. And then at first light Saturday morning, hope you made the right choices, deployed the right people to the right areas. And, as I mentioned at the news conference on Sunday, over-index on how bad you think the storm is going to be. We believe we over-indexed on how bad this storm was going to be. And I would argue there's still opportunities for improvement, that the next time we have a storm like this come north, Bell will learn from this event, learn what our planning process was and how we can actually improve that to ultimately reduce the impact on our infrastructure and reduce the impact on our customers.
Thank you. Jesse, do you have a follow-up question?
The Prime Minister was in Prince Edward Island yesterday talking about more resilient infrastructure, and we know with, climate change and issues of, the ferocity and these storms coming around more often. Where were some weak points that maybe you've identified now with post-Dorian, now post-Fiona, that we can, beef things up so we don't have the same problem again? Was it backup generators the main issue? I guess I'm hoping to hear from both of you gentlemen on really what was the driver of most of the blackout issues.
Yeah. The one biggest thing we could all do, and whether it's at what level of authority is, I'm going to simplify it, is to allow Nova Scotia Power to cut down more trees. That may sound like a bit of a flippant answer, but that is the biggest challenge we have, is trees falling on lines, knocking power out, knocking our infrastructure down. And it seems to be challenging to get the right authorities to allow the proper level of tree trimming and right-of-way trimming to minimize those issues. If we didn't have trees knocking our facilities down and knocking the power out, none of the other issues end up being an issue. Not to say, should we have, more fuel at some generator sites? Possibly there are small things, but if we could keep the power on, 90% of our issues go away during these hurricanes and these storms. I mean, that's the one biggest thing we could do, is clear the power right away.
Yeah, and from Bell, it's power, and secondly, with power impacts comes safety hazards, and one of the things from our technicians' perspective, even if our infrastructure has a backup generator, it's got lots of fuel. Soon as we lose commercial power, if we don't have access to that site because of trees down, power down, it becomes a safety issue for our technicians. So I think to make sure that I'll say the lights stay on and the power stays up, I think is the single biggest opportunity to keep communication services up. And and if just because we have backup generators doesn't guarantee that the power stays on and the sites stay up. There's other factors, we've talked about fuel, we've talked about access that impact that as well. So generators are an enabler, certainly. They're not the only solution or the only component of the solution to communications uptime.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Michael Tutton with the Canadian Press. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay, well, picking up on points from Moore and Mr. Bragg, let's turn now to Nova Scotia Power. Really, your company is being fined multiple times. Is that not correct? For not meeting reliability standards, and for a number of years prior to the fine of $250,000. Has your company done enough to create resilience and strength, knowing that these storms are just going to be continuing to come? Or what's going to change this broken record?
So we definitely have performance standards in place, and we welcome those. We think it's a very transparent process to make sure that there are good reliability programs in the province. as everybody has been saying on this briefing, it was a massive hurricane, and we understand how impactful that is to the trees of the province. And what we focus on is tree trimming. So we spend over 20 million a year on vegetation management throughout the entire province. We do that 365 days a year. And as Lee mentioned, that's the best thing we can do to prevent power outages going forward.
Michael, do you have a follow-up question?
Many people are in neighborhoods where they see a few branches down and they wonder why it takes 3 to 4 days, if not more, to make those repairs. So they compare it against one where the entire trees were down. Now they see branches down. And this may not be entirely fair, but it's not uncommon to hear Nova Scotians say that if a wind blows sideways, their power is going to go out. You know, are you worried about just losing the confidence of the people of Nova Scotia in the reliability of your system?
So we definitely take reliability very seriously, and we understand how frustrating power outages can be. But this was a massive hurricane with winds above 100 kilometers an hour for many hours. And that takes down more than just branches. We have massive trees that have come to the ground, thousands of trees that are on our infrastructure, and hundreds of broken poles. So while in some locations it may just be a few branches that are on the ground, the actual cause of that outage may be further up the line where a massive tree has taken that down as well. So our crews are in there working as hard as they can to remove those trees and power back on.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Ian Nathanson with the Cape Breton Post. Go ahead, Ian.
Okay, I'll give Geoff and Lee a break on the first question, but I'm coming back to you for the second question. To Matt Drover and to Lieutenant Colonel Adam Poirier, and Christine is on the line, so she can probably verify some of this. The CBRM Mayor Amanda McDougall made an announcement, almost a plea today, that we're going to probably need more resources, NSP-wise and as well as Army-wise. What is the plan now for deploying more Army forces to help out with the Cape Breton Regional Municipality area?
So thank you. I spoke to the mayor this morning actually about that, and currently my assessment is that we are fulfilling the requirement that they're asking for. So we're partnering with Nova Scotia Power. We're fulfilling the requirement that they need, but that doesn't mean that we can't provide more forces. It's only a matter of continuing to assess as the situation evolves. As we've heard from a few people on the call throughout this session, is that the situation is very dynamic, and there's inflows and outflows of resources that are happening at all times. So as the situation continues to emerge and we identify a need or a requirement for more support, then we can look at surging more support.
Okay, Ian, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, and this is for both Geoff and Lee. We're seeing now, well, more so for Geoff, we're seeing restoration times being extended into next week. Are we just now realizing that the situation is far more dire in Cape Breton Municipality? And when are the restoration times, are they just estimates, or when you're mentioning about coming on as early as Friday and others next week, is that just depending on the area? What's sort of the reasoning for the pushback on restoration times?
Sure. No. So from a restoration time perspective, and I kind of referenced this earlier, it's a process. We start with our core network, making sure that's up, making sure it's functional, and then work our way towards the customers. And I think we've all seen the pictures of the poles down, the cables on the road, all of those things, and all those pieces of infrastructure are required for Bell to ultimately reconnect all of our customers to the network. So there's this connection that I referenced earlier, and this synchronicity with the power corporations that's really, really key to us getting our customers on. We need poles stood up. We need things, back in the ground back in the air off the ground before we're able to connect our customers. So to your point, as we see more damage, as we get deeper in, we understand, okay, this is more work than we thought, and ultimately that will extend, restoration times for some customers.
Yeah, I mean, same answer. Again, we do the same thing, so we have the same issues. From a restoration standpoint, we're reliant on, as I said before, power, roads, access. It's hard to predict early on. what those times are going to be. I mean, Cape Breton did get hit quite a bit harder, I think, than some other areas. And so there was a lot more damage. Sometimes it's roads washed out. So in order to predict when service is going to be up and running, you then have to coordinate, well, when does the Department of Transportation put a culvert back in, build a temporary road, which then allows, you know, the military to go in to get rid of the trees, which then allows Nova Scotia Power to go in to restore power, which then allows ourselves or Bell to go in to put our own networks up and bring them back online. So, you know, as Jeff said, it's a lot of coordination. It's difficult to know all those pieces early on. And I do want to make it clear, we are all, whether it's ourselves, Bell, Rogers, Nova Scotia Power, we are all motivated to get this stuff done as fast as we can. I sometimes think that there seems to be an impression that we have a lackadaisical approach to restoring our networks, but you know, we want to get them back online. And again, not to be flippant, but we don't get paid when we don't provide service. We want to get the service back up and running as fast as we can. So we're very, very motivated to coordinate with our customers, to coordinate with everybody else, to try to get these things done as fast as we can. But it is an imperfect science, and as much as you can make an intelligent, informed estimate on restoration times, you know, you get to a site and then there's something else that you didn't anticipate or you weren't aware of that pushes it out even further and has impacts on other areas. And so, and was said before, sometimes you have to take down an area in order to turn another area back on or repair it. So it is challenging, but please believe me, we are all very motivated to get these things done as fast as we possibly can.
Thank you. I will just note we have about 4 minutes left and about 5 reporters, so we may not get to everyone, but we'll keep moving along. Next, we'll go to Adrian Blanc with Radio Canada. Go ahead, Adrian.
Thank you. My question is for Lieutenant Colonel Poirier. Combien de temps les forces armées canadiennes ont-elles passé ces dernières années en Atlantique à intervenir sur des catastrophes au Canada et surtout en comparaison avec des interventions à l'étranger?
Alors, nous avons toujours une responsabilité à être prêts à supporter les opérations domestiques quand même qu'on fait des opérations internationales. Alors, on a toujours une responsabilité d'être prêt à supporter les deux sortes d'opérations ici au Canada et à l'étranger au niveau international.
Adrian, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes. Les forces armées canadiennes devraient-elles comprendre une unité spécialisée dans les catastrophes naturelles, comme c'est suggéré par des experts?
Honnêtement, moi, dans le rôle que je peux faire tout de suite, in the role that I am performing at this current time, I'm not in a position to talk about that. I'm responsible for ensuring that we're supporting, you know, the province of Nova Scotia, the province of Prince Edward Island, per the request of assistance that came from the federal government. So that's my focus at this time.
If I may, so do you think you're prepared for a storm like this? Like you have the right tools and right resources?
I would say that we do have the appropriate resources to be able to do these operations. You know, we execute them. We conduct after action reports. We analyze how we've performed on them. But at the same time, they're always a little bit different, and you always need different resources. What you get in one hurricane may not be what you get in a flood. So we have a range of tools and resources that are available to us, and we really just have to tailor them to the situation.
Okay, we're going to end on Pat Healy. Pat, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. For Erica Fleck. Will there be a review of how comfort centers are determined based on the experience with Fiona? And will there be a push to establish GEM teams?
Hi, Pat. Thank you. Yeah, just like Lieutenant Colonel Poirier just said, we do an after-action review after every crisis event, and we always look at comfort centers, available locations, building with generators. We continue to try and increase that capacity, and we are on a huge recruiting drive for all GEM members. So hopefully this will assist us in getting some more volunteers ready to help their communities. Thank you.
And Pat, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. For Lee, this morning in Fall River, an Eastlink generator was in an accident spilling fuel on Highway 2. Can you give me a little bit more details on the accident? And does the accident set back plans to get the generator, the cell tower the generator was heading to, operating?
That's a level of detail that I don't have, with the exception that I did drive by that truck with the generator on it this morning. So I did see it and I asked about it. My understanding is the generator itself was salvageable and not damaged. It sort of tipped over on the trailer as the driver was pulling out into traffic. Again, this is information from my operations people. So the generator ended up where it was supposed to go. It was mostly the fuel spilled out of the generator while it was on its side, on the side of the road. So I appreciate the question, because I was lucky enough to be slowed down on my way to the office because of it, and dismayed that it was my truck.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much to our participants for joining us today. And I sincerely apologize to the reporters we weren't able to get to. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have a good night.